Leave it to Grandmom to share her words of wisdom. And for this individual, Grandmom's words certainly hit home. One of the messages she preached, building community. Introducing you to the investor who raised $82 million to continue to do just that. Closing the wealth and skills gap across America. You're in the Enterprise Zone at the Nasdaq. Hello everyone, this is Jabari Young, senior writer at Forbes, and I am joined by a special guest. Brother's name is Nasir Qadree. He is the founding and managing partner of Washington, D.C. based Zeal Capital Partners. Now, this is a early stage venture firm that recently raised $82 million on top of a whole bunch of other money. We'll dive into that in a minute. And this inclusive investment vehicle is laser focused on backing diverse management teams and rethinking the blocks of wealth, building wealth. Did I hit that right?
Building blocks of wealth.
Building blocks of wealth. All right, there you go. There you go. You should take my job. You take my job. I love that. Nasir, thank you so much for joining me at the Nasdaq, man. It's a pleasure to have you. Yeah.
Jabari, a pleasure to be with you.
Yeah, thank you, man. And you just right off the Amtrak, right, to come up here?
Right off. Took the 5:55 a.m. At Seller this morning.
Man, that is great, man. All the way up here to see me. This is phenomenal.
Only you.
Yes, thank you, man.
You're special.
Oh, man, listen, I appreciate it. But when you got to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning to bracket dawn to do that, I really appreciate it, man. But listen, we're here at the Nasdaq, so you got to give me a stock, right? What has worked well for Nasir Qadree and Zeal Capital Partners, or yourself? Like, what is something you bought, you want to buy? Like, what has worked well for you? Give me a stock.
You know, Jabari, I think less about stocks. I think it's more about building the right relationships that has gotten us to this point. We are living in a difficult market to fundraise. Yeah. Whether you are an entrepreneur or you're a fund manager like myself. And so when I think about what's got us here now 5 years, we've been in business for 5 years. It's been being intentional around relationships, leaning in and really continuing to stay disciplined in my investment focus throughout the years, now a little over a decade, and constantly, really thinking about value proposition. Why are we here, right? There's thousands of other venture capital firms, but if you think about our value proposition relative to the entrepreneurs that are seeking investment capital, why Zeal? And so it's really being very focus on this idea that you highlighted, looking at 3 categories: healthcare, financial technology, and the future of learning and work. And so these are 3 critical categories, $3 trillion categories that are laser focused on building, rethinking the building blocks of wealth, from education pathways to workforce, to learning, health equity, and including financial services.
I love that answer, but I'm still not going to let you get out of here without saying a stock. You got to give me a stock. What has worked well for you?
I think you can never go wrong with tech.
Tech.
I'm going to always be long on tech.
Right. Anything tech or something specific, like Apple phones?
I'm an Apple. All my devices are Apple, so I'm still long Apple.
Yeah, likewise. If you just told, I got my daughter a phone, so I'm all in on Apple too. I don't have any Apple stock though, so if you have any to share, make sure you pass them over. I would love to have it. But listen, as you just said, man, a lot is going on in 2025. Again, a lot going on in your sector, right? But also a lot going on in the world. But here we are. You need something to keep you motivated. So what has been Nasir's soundtrack to 2025? What's been keeping you motivated and positive?
I think building on top of COVID, we all found that thing. Yeah. Whether it was cooking, playing chess, for me was collecting vinyls.
That's right.
I'm a
huge. So you met your wife, right? You went up to her and said you like vinyl.
That's right. That's right. And I was spinning, and she ended up spinning my world around. I guess we were both spinning. Yeah. But spinning vinyl and collecting records, Jabari, and it's been therapeutic to me, especially when you live this duality of being an entrepreneur, being a husband, being a father, leaning in the community, and literally trying to rethink how we think about raising capital, how we think about access to capital, and building on top of local assets around the country as well in terms of where we find these entrepreneurs. And so, Songs to the Key of Life, to be even more specific to your question, is my favorite.
Stevie Wonder?
Stevie Wonder is my favorite vinyl.
Nice.
I play the whole track and I don't skip it.
Somebody bought me an album player, vinyl, and I have Purple Rain and Miles Davis. I haven't even opened it yet, but that was a last year's Father's Day gift. I feel so guilty. It's just collecting dust, right? I need to crack it open though because I'm hearing that it's a great experience.
Crack open the vinyl.
Yeah, so you vouch for it then?
I vouch for it. I DJ on the side too.
You still do that?
I still DJ
How do
on the
you
side.
find time to be running a VC firm and DJ on the side?
You and I was chatting earlier this morning around, making the best case for when whether you're traveling or you thinking of things that could continue to motivate you, and I like to call it remember why you started.
Yeah.
And for me, it's making sure that I continue to lean in those areas, and the other is running as well. And so, you got to make time for it.
That's right.
You got to make time for it.
Yeah. Well, you have a young son. If you walked into his class, what grade is he in?
Rising fourth grader.
Rising fourth grader. Perfect time. You walk into his fourth grade class, and all of his classmates are saying, "Well, what is it that you do, Mr. Nasir? What do you tell them? I loan out money to people, and they give it back to me. What do you tell them?"
It's funny. A fourth grader, even today, he says, Nasir, he puts money into small companies so they can become big companies.
Yeah.
And in the grand scheme of things, that is right. But I also want to teach, the importance of how, if you think about the way we all perceive capitalism, and some folk may not, view capitalism in a positive light.
Yeah.
But I believe in this duality that both can be true. You look at healthcare, you look at financial technology with the lens towards inclusion and wellness, you look at the future of learning and work with the lens towards narrowing the skills gap between education and employment pathways. Those are areas where we can disrupt systems that have not afforded low wealth patients, the underbanked consumer, the frontline worker, or low income student. But at the same time, these are also $3 trillion categories. And so I'm teaching my son and other mentees and young people who have an interest in becoming entrepreneurs or fund managers that this idea of there's a way to inject capital that has the ability to become category leaders, but also has the ability to provide access and opportunity for those who are often left out.
Yeah. Well, let's dive more into that, man. Again, you just closed on an $82 million raise, right? Zeal Fund 2, if I'm not mistaken.
Zeal Fund 2. That's right.
And investors include City Impact, M&T Bank, Mass Mutual, Spelman College
That's
Endowment, right? Already joining Hampton University, who's an investor. And so what you want to do with this money, 25 early stage companies you're going to plan on investing over a 4-year period. Check sizes between 1 million and 2.3 million with the option to serve as a board of directors, right? Now,
That's right.
Zeal Fund 2 is amongst 3 funds that you have under Zeal Capital Partners. The other one being Barclays for Black Formation Investments, Zeal Fund 1, right? And in Zeal Fund 1, you raised about $62 million, if I'm not mistaken. All that sound correct?
54 million.
54 million, okay, so 54 million for Zeal Fund 1,
That's right.
And 82 for Zeal Fund 2. How much altogether have you raised total?
$186 million.
$186 million.
Within 5 years.
Great, in 5 years. Take me on the inside of Zeal Fund 2, man. You gotten this money. What do you plan to do with it? What's the future looking like for you?
So it's important to us that we continue to double down on the categories we were investing in out of Fund 1, which is fintech and the future of learning and work.
Right.
I wrote this John F. Kennedy moonshot 3-pager when I was ideating Zeal all of 2019. And one of the areas that I wrote, I remember a couple paragraphs around, if we're truly going to democratize access to capital and think about innovations that are turbocharging economic mobility, then we cannot discount healthcare. Now, my own personal track record over the past 10 years did not over-index in healthcare. And so I knew when I started Zeal, I needed to focus on areas that I had the most exposure into, which is future of learning and work and financial technology. And then when it came to scale into a new category, it was I needed to focus on building a strategy, an investment mandate, building out the team of limited partners and advisors, and of course, increasing my investment team. And so we did that with health equity being the third category for Zeal Fund 2. And so, as you mentioned, we'll focus on 25 deals. We'll not be afraid to step up and lead deals. I think that's important. When you're a category-specific mandate, it's important that we show to the market that we go deeper, and then we have the ability to step up and lead deals. And that's important, particularly in this market where founders are looking for aligned investors, whether you're strategic aligned, mission aligned. And I think that the upside is that we have limited partners, from financial institutions to insurance companies like Mass Mutual, to university endowments like Hampton University, my alma mater, Spelman College, Southern New Hampshire University. These are also universities that make up the very fabric in terms of the type of students and workers that they support, as well. And so there's a lot of deal flow and pipeline across these areas, and we're seeing these innovations all across the country, not just come from very few places, and that is key, which goes to your point earlier around inclusive investing, this 5-prong market-back approach that allows us to widen our lens, yet keep alpha and mission-driven companies front and center.
Yeah, I hear a lot of companies that say that, right? But why? Why, if I'm an entrepreneur and I have a great idea, am I going to give Zeal Capital Partners? Why am I going to try to take money from you guys and give you a board of directors on my company, as opposed to there's a couple of other firms down in Washington. You have Steve Chase's firm in Revolution, right?
Yeah.
So you have some competitors in your own area.
Yeah.
Why am I not going to them? What makes Zeal Partners so special?
And I think the beauty of recognizing your peers in the space is that there's more capital out there for those entrepreneurs to include us all on their cap table. So none of us, including the founder, can be successful if it's just us injecting capital into that founder. But what I've recognized, at least in my career, is that when a founder thinks about building out their cap table, you want a diversified investment group who brings differentiated resources, whether it's connections or it's offering experience around product, experience around branding, of course, is talent management. And so I think for us, we focus on 3 core areas: helping companies think about their cash flow and financials, thinking about how they scale from one market to as they scale outside of their current market, thinking about obviously upstream capital. I'm a big fan, and it's important that we understand the importance of the capital continuum. And so as founders grow, Zeal, we can't be there for in terms of like continuing to inject capital. We have to ensure that we have relationships up the capital stack, Series A, Series B, and beyond, pre-IPO. And so when I think about an entrepreneur selecting Zeal as their preferred investment partner, for us, what we've seen in terms of their testimony has been Zeal knows the space well. They have a track record in supporting entrepreneurs in our categories. They understand other areas outside of capital, like they have strong product experience, they have operating experience, and then the other is access to upstream capital. And so those are the 3. Once you become a Zeal portfolio company, those are the 3 core areas that we spend the most time on for founders. 2
companies that one is not anymore, but one is still in your portfolio, is Susu. Was just with the brother, Mr. Abbey, man, big fan of his.
Absolutely.
And then one that was sold in Canaries in Dallas, right?
That's right.
2 opposites, and one's still in, one's not. What happened with Canaries? I mean, that was was sold. Did you guys make your money back? Were you make your investors happy? What happened with that transaction? And what's going on with the Susu?
Well, one, I'm commenting on the Susu's doing well.
Yeah.
Susu's doing well. They continue to rethink how we think about credit score and credit access expansion. One of our core subcategories within the financial technology space. I think when you reach that scale, you tend to, as an investor, ask yourself the question, How are the founders doing? As these are Wamimo Abbey and Samir Gol have been exceptional. They have an incredible investor base, and they also have a great executive coach as well. And so I think they're going to continue to become a market leader across the financial technology space. I'm bullish on them.
Over $1 billion valuation, if I'm not mistaken, for that.
Their last valuation was $1 billion.
Yes.
Exactly. Proud of those brothers.
Yeah.
When I think about the portfolio, in venture, you always model out companies that won't achieve the level of success that you would like in terms of returning capital back to your limited partners. And as you think about, as in my experience, particularly in Fund One, there've been a number of lessons learned around how companies manage their cash flow. And in many cases, it's less about the technology company. It's more about will the market continue to be ripe for that type of innovation to scale? And I think that's what we see in a number of our portfolio companies out of Zeal Fund One.
Yeah. Well, so funny, man. I was with some people. We have a mutual friends in the same circles.
Okay.
And I'm asking them, I said, well, listen, I got him coming up to the show. What would you ask him? And a variety of things that came through. And one of which was, we were going through this impact investment era, right? Where after George Floyd, everybody was, throwing money at, VCs and throwing money at entrepreneurs trying to fix the problem. But that impact era, one can make the argument, is over, right? As we see new ideologies coming from new administration, companies changing, all of those things. And so the individual said, how is Nasir going to navigate those commercial returns and kind of getting out of the impact investment phase? And because listen, investors want their money back, right?
That's right.
I mean,
That's right.
The exits are down, and if I'm not mistaken, it's very hard to raise money right now because family offices, endowments are rethinking if they want to touch the VC space because they're not getting their returns on investment. How are you navigating that impact investment era being kind of over, and more commercial terms and people saying, hey, you promised us this, we want our money back. How are you navigating that?
Jabari, I am reminded what keeps us in business. I've started this firm to be around for the next 50 plus years. I started every pitch when meeting with limited partners and even founders. And in doing so, I often said, these are $3 trillion sectors. And these are also sectors that will always be ripe for innovation, but also have the ability to, again, disrupt systems across these three categories. And as I think about the climate that we're in, it's vital that we lead with portfolio companies. We have over 50 plus portfolio companies across the three accounts. And so the next era, the next 5 years, 10 plus years, I am solely, including our entire investment team at Zeal, are focusing on the stories, the impact of our portfolio companies. Number two is continuing to signal that these three categories, from an investment perspective, will always be ripe for innovation. I think when we lead with the ability, the fact that these sectors will always be investable sectors, that's investment acumen. That's not focusing on concessionary returns. And then the fact that you have not only over 50 plus companies, but also a track record prior to Zeal, I think that also continues to bolster why Zeal is the investor to continue to invest in these categories.
Yeah. Are you facing any pushback? I mean, are people you're asking for money for, right? You raised $82 million. Are they kind of giving you a little bit more of a hard way to go? Because again, DEI is still under attack, and one can look at your company. Oh, it's black led DEI, and it's like no, this is business. This is VC. I have my thesis. Are you facing any of that pushback? Are you facing any secondary options, or people second guessing in the marketplace?
Yeah, that's a great question. When I first decided to go back out to market to raise Zeal Fund 2, the first crop of investors was Zeal Fund 1 Limited Partners. And it was very intentional and said, you know what? Let's not go public yet. Let's give Zeal Fund 1 investors an opportunity to do their diligence, to review Zeal Fund 1 markups and let them and give them time. And so I'm proud that 80%, just about 80% of Zeal Fund 1 limited partners continued their investment. Now, when it came to new limited partners, that was the case, especially during this climate. But I never led with we're an impact investment firm, because we don't call ourselves an impact investment firm. I never led to the fact that we solely invest in terms of across the entire platform. Now, there is a segment, which we'll get there, of our platform that's focused on training the next generation of venture investors and the next generation of diverse tech companies.
Yeah.
It is important for me, both internally and to our entrepreneurs, those that we partner with, and limited partners, that diversity will always be part of our DNA. It's how it allows us to make the best informed investment decisions.
Right. Well, you focus on diverse teams, right? Your thing
Absolutely.
is diverse teams helps companies grow.
And
diversity of thought.
And there's data that
Yes.
proves that if you are a diverse manager teams, you will outperform. And so I'm still betting on that data. But more importantly, I'm betting on my team.
Yeah.
I think the way I've compiled my team with strong domain experience, value aligned, operating experience, investment acumen, those are the critical and most important pieces when building out an investment firm. And so I think that I don't think that has gotten lost during the fundraising process, getting to Zeal Fund 2.
Yeah. Another individual said, ask him, is he hard on himself? Because initially, looking at the SEC filings, you intended to raise over $100 million, and you walked away with 82. And the individual says 82 is the new 100 in this environment, right? And so, are you a little hard on yourself because maybe you didn't get what you wanted, but you still got 82 million?
I'm so competitive, Jabari. I've always been since I was young. I'd be lying to you if I didn't look at myself in the mirror. I'm like, say you fell short. That was a negative.
Do you feel like you fell short here, though?
I came out of the bathroom after looking at myself in the mirrr and said I didn't.
Hell no, you didn't. $82 million.
82 is no small feat. I recognize that. I recognize that, full stop. But I also recognize that it is an incredible privilege to be liquid, have this amount of dry powder to join the journey of the next generation of category leaders. And for that, I am proud of my team. I'm grateful for my limited partners. And this is where the hard work happens, though.
Yeah.
There's one part to raise, but now you have to go out and deploy. And that's where my focus is going forward.
Yeah. What's Nasir Qadree like running a VC firm in 2025? Because the same individual, so what type of leader is he? He says, he's a solid leader because he is good at examining the entire puzzle and understanding where the pieces fit. Yeah. And so, what's it like for you running a VC firm here in 2025?
Yeah, I was chatting with a close friend of mine, and we had this very common. He's a peer of mine in the space, and I was sharing with him, giving him the same
might be
answer.
The same individual was telling me all
it
this
may
stuff.
be. We travel in tight circles, close circles. I think it's important this year, and even a through line going forward, that I just remain disciplined. It's just there's theory and then there's action. You share in your pitch deck what you say you're going to do, and then is executing it in action. And so that's number one. I think number two is the importance of developing and retaining top talent across the team. I do not plan to be the face of Zeal. I want this to be a firm that's around for long.
Why not, though? Why do you say that, though? And I only bring that up because I remember asking Ice Cube this very thing when he was building the Big Three.
Yeah.
And he's calling me on the phone. I'm like, yo, you're Ice Cube. You don't have to do this. And he says, well, if I'm not the face, it's going to fail. Like, I have to be out there. Like, this is your brand. It's just, I know you have investors, but why not be the face?
Well, I understand, especially in the early days, we're 5 years in, there's going to be this overlap of personal brand and Zeal brand for me. But as the firm continues to mature, and you see folks that I've hired, they're crushing it. They're out being thought leaders. They're writing thought leadership pieces. they're shepherding deals, sourcing deals, and bringing deals to final. Like I want to put them in spaces and places where the broader venture capital community should know about. And so I believe if this firm is going to be around for the long haul, it can't just rest on Nasir. It has to rest on the other members of the team that are doing the work. And so that's the reason why. But I think the other component of another attribute this year is just getting smarter. I'm a lifelong learner. I care deeply about if we're truly going to be a category-specific investment strategy, then we have to get smarter across our categories. And the cool thing about these three categories is that they're always changing.
Yeah.
Right? We saw the future of learning and work shift from being around productivity tools and during COVID to now AI playing a major role in how we think about student achievement and employment outcomes, for example. And so staying disciplined, getting smarter, and continuing just to perform in communication across both our peers in the broader private market, why you're investing in these categories, but also to your founders and your limited partners as well.
Yeah. Take me back to Atlanta, man. Southwest Atlanta, you grew up, right? Your mother had you at Clark Atlanta, her sophomore year at Clark Atlanta. So you're growing up on campus, right, as a young kid. But what was that like for you growing up in Southwest Atlanta?
We call it the SWATs, right? And I am a product of Atlanta. I'm not the person I am today, based on the surroundings and the people and the nonprofits I went through that taught me the importance of leadership, service, entrepreneurship. And as someone who, that area was not the best area. And I was exposed to a lot, but I was also exposed to HBCUs and again, entrepreneurship. And so I credit my mom, my late grandmother, for truly just showing me, what success, it encouraged me, that my definition of success is subjective versus everyone else's, and don't get too bottled in to what the world may think of what you have to do. And so, but then there's also, grandma said, to whom much is given, much is required. That's and right. So yeah. I also navigated, both college and my career up until today, will continue to train and support the next generation as well. That is my responsibility, full stop.
Yeah. Before you fall in love, right, with the venture capital and the business side, and we get into you owning a coffee shop in a minute, right? I want to learn all about the hot Nasir. But at the same time, like before you do that, like you're on a Saturday watching cartoons, like what is Nasir getting up and doing as a young kid, right? What cartoons are you watching? What was your favorite at that point?
Jabari, I actually didn't get into cartoons, man.
Not at all?
I mean, maybe Animaniacs when I was young. But I was Martin through and through.
Yeah.
I was
even as a young kid, your mom let you watch Martin?
She let me watch Martin.
Wow.
We watch Martin every Thursday, a little bit of Family Matters and Fresh Prince as well, but Martin was...
What's your favorite episode of Martin?
Oh, man.
Has to be the Halloween one. Come on, man. That was a classic.
We walked in with the fake dog.
Yeah, when he was pretending to be... His CD player got missing.
His CD player got missing. That was probably one of my favorite shows.
Yeah.
But definitely, I think about my time in Atlanta and fast forward to who I am right today. I credit my family. I credit my mentors and my sponsors. Those are two different types of individuals. And now, I have an incredible wife. I call her my bed of three quarters.
Yeah.
And Chloe. And so I'm so grateful. And I think when becoming an entrepreneur, whether you're a fund manager, which is still an entrepreneur, or you're building a company, can be incredibly lonely, man. And I think about, again, some of the through lines that has gotten to me where I am today and continue to encourage me, especially in my most challenging days, are those that are my confidants.
Yeah.
Those who are with you at your lowest, and those are with you at your, celebrate you at your most highest.
Yeah, as you're going through it though, you have to have Martin nearby as you're building this VC firm. You get your nose too, right?
That's right.
You got to say no to people, so you still need some time to laugh. I'm sure that was your best for 4 consecutive years of your life was spent at Hampton University. That's what you say.
Absolutely.
And so you're coming out of Dunwoody High School, playing basketball, popular this year, and you go to Hampton University. Why did you go to that school?
You nailed it. It was the best 4 years of my life. I remember I was actually an older freshman because I did a postgraduate year after coming from boarding school in Maine, and you know it was family the moment I stepped on campus. I felt at home. I was like a lot of us trying to find yourself. I instantly found my people, and that carried on. And like most of us, but Hampton was just special. After graduating, I just launched on to so many friends who we were just supporting each other throughout our careers and our families, and that type of love and commitment to each other, I thought was and continue to still believe is special. It is the best consecutive 4 years. Now, you know, I would plan to be married for the next 50 plus years.
Your wife may have something to say about that later on.
She would, but not just Hampton. I just believe that HBCUs are the backbone of this country.
Well, as you're coming out of Hampton, right? I mean, you obviously you get your feet wet on Wall Street, right? You do some time up in Connecticut, right, working for this the Department of Education up that way.
That's right.
But you also find time to start a coffee shop, right, in between down in West Village, right?
That's right.
And so, what made you start a coffee shop? Like, how much money did you put down? Like, what was this era of you being a coffee shop owner?
I won't get into the economics. I can tell you my mindset at that time. It was myself and 2 of my close friends, and we had not touched our bonuses at that point. And
coming off of Wall Street.
Coming off of Wall Street, and we were all still on Wall Street. I was at State Street Bank at the time. I was living in Boston, so I was making the commute, while the other 2 were in New York City. And I remember at first the idea, Jabari, was to build a speakeasy. And then we found quickly that was hard in New York to get the license, to find the real estate. And one of my friends, his father was pretty, and he still is influential in the real estate game here in New York, and found us and got lucky in the spot in West Village. And then we found this beautiful spot, very, very small, next to NYU. So we attract a lot of Stern Business School students. And we said, you know what, this shouldn't just be a coffee shop. This should be an incubator. And what we did was we attracted a lot of entrepreneurs, not just out of NYU Stern, but also around the New York. This is 2010, 2011, and that's where my story started with venture capital.
Yeah.
Because
hearing all these conversations,
you become respectfully nosy because like any owner, you want to ask how you doing.
From time to time, you got to.
Exactly, you got to have an ear. But we were attracting investors who were meeting with these entrepreneurs. And I'm, again, respectfully nosy and getting to know some of these companies. A lot of those companies were education technology companies, and decided to put some personal capital and started learning about the private markets, more specifically venture capital, but also more specifically education technology, mission-driven investing. Because at that point, I was also thinking about how do a friend of mine calls this one pocket thinking versus 2 pocket thinking.
Yeah.
This idea that we should not work in a capacity of 2 pocket thinking. I'm just paying the bills, and maybe 6 p.m. to 12 a.m. or Saturday mornings I'm doing something I absolutely love or aligns with my values. What does one pocket thinking look like for Nasir? And I found that at the coffee shop, where these were mission-driven companies. I could put a little capital in and started building up my angel track record, and that was my first foray into venture capital. We sold the coffee shop, and then name was put in the hat to join a firm called Village Capital down in DC.
Yeah.
and been in DC for 10 years now.
And you learn the ropes of venture. But listen, why didn't you should have sold the coffee shop, but you should have kept the recipe for the hot Nasir, right? If I'm not mistaken, that was a splash of espresso.
That's right.
Hot cocoa, some cinnamon, and some whipped cream.
That's right.
Right.
That's
that was in the
right.
hot Nasir. And it was the best-selling latte at your coffee shop.
That's right. That's
Man,
right.
I
That's
almost
right.
felt like, this cannot be true. The hot Nasir.
The shameful thing, I have not had the hot Nasir, at least that in some time. And
You should resurrect it, man.
I should.
Bring it back.
I should.
Yeah,
I
right
should.
at Zeal, too. Why don't you the coffee shop at Zeal called the Hot Nasir? Right as you walk in there, man. Hey, listen, your career, man, as we wrap up in here and get you in some fun questions a little bit, but your career, as I revisit your story and your desire to learn about the VC world and learn about banking, and you come into some pioneer names. I want to read them off to you, and you tell me the first thing that comes to mind. One word when I read these names to you, people who've played parts in your life. The first is Ray McGuire over at Lazard. It's the first thing that comes to mind. One word when you think of Ray McGuire.
Focus.
Focus.
Laser focus. He taught me how to be focused on what's in front of you and just do exceptional work. You want to be the top 1% in everything you do, and it takes time. It takes going above and beyond. I credit Ray, and I know I'm not the only one, because Ray has and continues to mentor and sponsor so many of my peers. But the attribute of staying laser focused.
Yeah, laser focus. Fred Royal over at JP Morgan.
Oh, Fred is my guy. Fred is someone who...
One word. One word.
Commitment.
Commitment. Why commitment?
He continued to pour into me, especially in moments where I did not see enough of myself. And I think we all need a Fred Royal in our lives. He was one of the first that I actually shared the idea that I'm going to leave AT&T and go raise $25 million. He thought I was like, at first, and then I came back to him. He said, Nasir, you got this. And so he just committed to me over the course, and he still is. And I'm so grateful for his friendship and him being an incredible sponsor to me as well.
Wes Moore is the governor, right, of Maryland. One of your first investors at Zeal, one of your very close friends.
Yeah.
When you think of Wes Moore's first thing that comes to mind, in one word.
Leadership.
Leadership. Why leadership?
You know, when I first met Wes, his demeanor and how he would lead with compassion, ask questions before giving an opinion, being confident, knowing when to ask questions and build a team around him, particularly those that were smarter than him. Those were attributes that I continue to carry through here at Zeal. And so the attribute of leadership that I've gotten from Wes over the years continues. And I'm so proud of him. I'm so proud of him.
Think he'd be president? I was having a spirit debate with somebody about this long ago. I was like, man, that might be next.
Wes has a bright future
Yeah.
in politics. I'll leave it there.
I take it you'll vote for him. Yeah, you would. Of course you would.
Absolutely.
Well, listen, let's stay in Maryland
course.
for a minute, man, because I know you're looking all over Iowa, Chicago. You always have the coastal cities, but I always feel like Baltimore gets lost in the conversation all the time. And I'm on the Amtrak too, coming back and forth from DC, and I know when I'm riding through Baltimore because I'm from Philly, and it reminds me so much of that when I'm driving through. I'm a big Wire fan, so Baltimore kind of like hits home. What is going on in Baltimore that maybe people aren't talking about, that maybe Zeal sees something there and you're going all in?
Jabari, when I think about places like Baltimore, I think about the importance of understanding local assets. And I think that is lost when you think about the broader venture capital and just the investor community in general. Today, 80% of the capital continues to flow in this country in three places: New York City, San Francisco, and Cambridge, Boston area, where you have the 47 other states in DC fighting over the remaining 20%. I think that is wrong. And if entrepreneurs are truly going to be the change agents of this country, then it has to include everyone. So taking, for example, for Baltimore, Johns Hopkins. Baltimore's become a healthcare innovation hotbed. It's become an education technology workforce hotbed as well. You look at Johns Hopkins, you look at the incubators involved, Conscious Ventures, my guy, Jeff Cherry, for example, is doing great work. You have Brown Advisory, you have investment firms, you have university systems, you have a government, both local and at the state level. You have venture firms, family offices, private foundations. This is what I mean about understanding when founders understand and investors understand the power of local assets. They don't need to move to New York City or Silicon Valley. And I think if we are more proactive and diving into these quote unquote flyover cities or second, third tier markets, if you call it, they will never want you to call their city second, third tier market, by the way. Let me be careful with that. You will find investable entrepreneurs. And economically, if you're raising $2, $3, $4 million, you'll go much further
in Baltimore
than it would here or San Francisco. So I believe that investors, we have to look more than 20 miles outside of Menlo Park, Manhattan and Boston, if we're truly going to democratize access to capital and resources.
Yeah. Someone, young brother out there may be looking at this interview and he may want to start a venture capital firm, right? He may want to follow in your footsteps. What's step one? What are you telling?
Gain a skill set.
Gain a skill set.
Gain a solid skill set. There's several skill sets where you can be productive and grow to be the 1% in venture capital. But one example could be learning how to model, learning how understanding deal flow, understanding the structure of venture capital, and eventually start to build out your track record. Point to deals that you source, that you shepherd or you conduct diligence on, and that you eventually underwrote. You have to have conviction in your own self. What makes you unique as a fund manager is very important, because today there are thousands of venture firms out there. So the question is, why you? Why now? And so that's critically important in terms of understanding your why and what differentiates you versus other VC firms.
Yeah, if you are talking to an entrepreneur, one trait that you want to see in them before you just write over a check?
Well, you got to have zeal.
Yeah.
Pun intended.
Get some zeal up in you.
You got to have passion. You got to be zealous. I think number two is having a clear sense of the market. Right, and so some founders will share with you that there's no competition. There's always some form of competition across the marketplace, and so the ability for a founder to crystallize the market opportunity, but also the potential competition that could be in the space is critically important as well. The other, I think, is product differentiation and also building a team, and then just a skill attribute. Like, do I believe in this founder to actually execute? Going back to theory versus action. And so those are the areas that I think that I look for in founders, and is part of our Zeal rubric that gets us excited about a potential Zeal portfolio company.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Get you out of here on some fun stuff, man. First, the $1 million question. First million. How'd you make it?
Well, I would say in a number of different ways. One is through my previous time on Wall Street. The other is just through investments in the public markets, and in other places, it's just a bit of a collaborative, the coffee shop, I'll throw that in there as well. But the firm, we're well capitalized, and I'm proud of it.
Yeah.
We're going to be around for the next, God willing, 40, 50 plus
Well, this
years.
is only your million, not the firm's million, so it's only your million. So you made it through Wall Street and through your background. How did you spend it? How did you spend your first million?
Well,
was on a Ferrari, Lamborghini?
No. I'm not a flashy guy. I don't think.
No.
I'm not a flashy guy at all. I don't think I'll never will be that type of guy. I know. I do remember crediting, literally and figuratively, a debt pool of got my cousin, my brother. For those of you who are in debt, like, let's put it in there and let me help you. And didn't get through it all in terms of but I supported them through through managing their debt. But now that to me was important. Think about wealth creation for us. we got to get out of debt.
Absolutely.
And so that to me was better than getting that big time car.
Yeah, giving them
obviously.
fresh starts. Yeah, it's so funny. Some schools, I forget which ones I don't want to say, but I know they do that. After their students graduate, they pay off their student loans if they reach a certain, because it's like, man, you don't want to go in a world with student loans.
That's
I
right.
know they're not no fun, right? Student loans,
That's right.
they're no
That's right.
joke at all, no fun. But I'm glad you did that. So no regrets, no regrets. I wouldn't, no, absolutely not.
No regrets
Some
at all.
outlook stuff, man. Agentic AI, right? We already talked about Gen AI, and that's one thing of it, but agentic AI. When you hear those two words, that phrase, what comes to mind for you? What is no one talking about when you think of agentic AI? The ability for computers to do everything without any human supervision.
Well, I think that agentic AI in the world of quantum computing is definitely going to play a major role in that regard. And I think about the workforce, there's this, this debate around, humans, being, will we have, will Gen AI or AI in general disrupt the workforce? And I think there will be, but I think there will always be this human element around decision making. Culture as well will always be there. So I think it's going to play a role in the workforce, for example, but I also don't think it's going to just wipe out the role that humans play from a cultural and making informed decisions perspective.
Yeah. Black outlook, right? Nielsen says Black America's spending power will reach 2.1 trillion by 2026, right? You hear that figure, what comes to mind?
Opportunity. I think
Opportunity.
opportunity from an investment perspective for sure, particularly for those who are in the B2C space, right? If you're investing in ideas or building, if you're an entrepreneur building a B2C company, and its target market is the Black community, then there's an opportunity for a market, there's an opportunity to capitalize on that, and recognizing spending power from an investor perspective. That's attractive.
Yeah, like that, love that. Look around the world, right? Where is Nasir putting money at right now outside of this country? Where are you investing at personally, not Zeal, but where are you putting your money at right now? Which country, why?
It's funny, my wife and I had this conversation around real estate in other countries. You look at
And she's from Africa, if I'm not mistaken.
She's Congolese American, yeah. And so she has pushed me to be the importance of being a global citizen and thinking about both personally and Zeal-related investment opportunities. And so we often talk about different real estate activities happening in Europe and Africa for sure. She's never been in Latin America, so we plan to head down there and just browse and take a look at what the economics looks like down there from a real estate perspective. And so I do think having exposure in real estate in like Italy or in Europe somewhere, I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I heard a lot about Italy, man. I don't know if I can afford it, but I hear it's pretty nice if you especially.
Her mother just retired, and so that's her dream. Her dream, so we're trying to make that happen for her. That's her
down
goal.
in Italy? She retired down there?
No, she just retired, and her goal is to move to Italy.
To move to Italy. Oh, that's great. Y'all can go down there and scout it out then.
Exactly.
Yeah, there you go. Well, you have the money. You can help her buy the house now.
That's the idea.
Hey, man, listen, their favorite 3 books, right? 3 books that inspire you to perform or your best or motivate you. What 3 books are they? Will help you out.
Well, Alchemist will always be
one of my favorites, man.
Paulo Coelho.
Omens and all that.
Absolutely, absolutely. The other, I'm a huge podcast head, by the way. I got my wife's book is one of my favorites as well. Life, I Swear.
Yeah.
I will definitely give her that. And I think the third, You Make Me Want to Holla.
Make Me Want to Holla.
By Nathan McCall.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite books as well.
Yeah, that's classic, man. Good to great time, man. Get you out of here on that. What is the difference? And I think you've been around some icons, some great people. What's the difference between a good VC firm and a great one?
That is a question, Jabari, I have been really pondering on in terms of going from a fairly decent firm to a franchise where folks will know you on one name basis. So I think Zeal will become that very intentional, what we call. But it's I think when you look at both liquidity events, companies that are that are becoming market leaders. That allows you to gain credibility, that you have the ability to go out and pick and help scale early stage companies. I think it's also how you treat your team, and so fostering a culture that allows folks to climb. Whether you're an analyst and your ambition is to become a partner, for example. And then 3 is showing the market that you continuing to produce thought leadership. And what I mean by that is, again, we're a category specific investment firm. And so it's important that we're constantly sharing to the market our latest views across our categories: fintech, healthcare, and the future of learning and work. And so thought leadership is also critically important.
Yeah, love that, man. I thought you were going to throw the hot Nasir in there somewhere. Like, hey, one of the greats, you also have to have the hot Nasir at the coffee.
Well, I would say you have to bring your full self. And I think that is, for me, it is, I love things like the hot Nasir. I love vinyl. I love to run. I love basketball.
Yeah.
There are folks in our team who love to Zumba dance. They love to swim. It's subjective, but it's important for me as a leader to create space so they can perform at the highest clip. And so that to me is part of building the best culture, which is hard in venture.
Yeah, it is. Well, have a couple more Martin watch parties. You might find it a little bit easier.
That's
Get
true.
everybody laughing on the same page. Nasir, thank you so much for the time, and congratulations on raising $82 million. Again, that is very difficult at this time, right? I mean, again, VC sector is going through some very interesting moments. As one investor said, joy and pain, like Frankie
That's
featuring Frankie Beverly.
That's
I'm
right.
all over the place.
That's right.
But joy and pain. So I know the ups and downs, but you should be proud of yourself, man. $82 million, man. That's a lot of money.
I am. I'm proud of the team. The time is now.
Yeah.
It is critically important that entrepreneurs recognize that there is liquidity out there. There's fresh, dry powder capital out there, and now the real work continues. And so,
well, you got a lot of real work, and you got to return money to investors.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
Zeal Capital Partners, fresh off of an $82 million raise. I cannot be around. Love to be around when they raise $100 million. Get back here on the show. We'll talk about it. Thank you so much, Nasir. Appreciate the time, man. Definitely come back so we can talk more in the VC space.
That's right.
Appreciate the time. Thank you for watching.